Good morning to you wherever it is that you have logged on to watch this incredible moment with us. It's Women in Conversation, brought to you by McDonald's.
Behind every successful woman is not a man. Actually, it's financial habits that keep her on track and keep her financially savvy. So today we're looking into the financial habits that affect our daily lives, especially given our economic state. I'm Maya Fisher-French, and I'm your moderator for the session.
Good morning, and thank you, Maya. Welcome to all our women out there, and a special Happy Women's Month for all our women. I'd like to do a special welcome to our Middle East and Africa leadership and also the Women's Leadership Network out there, as well as a special welcome to our new McDonald's South Africa Chief People Officer, Yvonne Temba. So what is the purpose of the Women's Leadership Network? Really, it is to recognize women for the contribution they are making and which they have made, and also to raise awareness. Very important. So we have got the Women in Conversation platform, which provides an opportunity for all our women to come together, empower one another, and to share stories. We run Women in Conversation internally only. But I approached my sponsor and CEO, Greg Solomon, and had a conversation with him regarding taking this nationally to South Africans out there. And today, this is what we see. We're talking to all South Africans out there, and particular our women. I also want to say, I'm glad that we've also got men today that have joined us, and I welcome them also. Indeed, when I approached our CEO, Greg Solomon, to take this nationally and to South Africa, the answer was yes. So what I'd like to do now is to play a video that is very close to our hearts about issues that's affecting women, in particular women in South Africa. So Greg, I know you're going to say I'm cheeky, but I really like to put you on the spot and ask you to say a few words after this video. Thank you, Maya.
Violence against women must stop.
Enough is enough.
We as men in McDonald's have taken a stand.
What is happening in this country and this world is totally unacceptable.
It's about time we unite in action.
Gender-based violence has got to stop.
Stop the violence now.
We are starting our journey and our campaign right now.
The time to sit on the fence and do nothing has come to an end.
For the month of August, we'll be wearing armbands, we'll be flying flags.
As a son, husband, and father, I can no longer be silent.
We have taken a very tough stance against this scourge in our country.
It started with us as men, and it needs to stop with us as men.
This is time for action.
Join me in making a difference.
My name is Prashant Maharaj.
My name is Ashley Ward.
This is Mloma Tonsi.
I'm Greg Solomon.
Piwe Reginald Skosana.
My name is Tinyiko.
And I say, stop violence
Stop violence.
Against women.
against women.
Against women.
Stop violence against women. Sis Maureen, I was just supposed to say hello to everybody. Not now, you've got my name on the screen, for goodness sake. I thought I was just going to say hello. It's a nervous place for me to be with all these ladies. But since you put me on the spot a little bit, I think on my feet, I'll tell you a little bit about McDonald's. We've been here for 26 years now. We serve almost 8 million customers every single month, 8 million a month. We have 15,000 employees, over 310 restaurants in 9 provinces. And we've had 6 years of fantastic growth, fantastic market share gain, and solid profitability. I don't know if you know, but 90% of all people working in McDonald's, all 15,000 are Black South African people. Over 60% of all our people in McDonald's are women. Over 64% of all restaurant managers, leaders that run restaurants, are women. 3% of our franchisees, Porsche's on the panel today, are women. And just on 50%, just slightly over, of the top 20 leaders in this company are women. You know, I really say to my team that we don't want to just talk about diversity. We don't want to talk about inclusion and equality and empowerment. We really, really want to live it. And that's what Maureen and the Women's Leadership Network have really hold us accountable to be able to do. And we've even put that diversity, inclusion, equality, and empowerment as part of one of our 5 values. We have 5 values in McDonald's as well. And it's one of our strategic pillars in our strategic plan. But it wasn't always this way. Just 10 years ago, we didn't have these big numbers. We were more around the 30% women in the organization. So the first thing that you have to do in any organization, you have to acknowledge. You have to acknowledge that we're not equal, and we haven't been equal, and we're still not equal. Then you need to set a plan, and then you need to commit to equality, and you need to commit to these type of focuses. Now, women in McDonald's South Africa have contributed to our fantastic success, not because they're women, because they've led our success over the last 5 years. Not because they're women, but because they're leaders who are women. Not because they're women, because they are innovators and creators who are women. Not because they're just women, but they are high performers, high performance people and leaders who are happen to be women. And not because they're just women, but because they're visionary and they're inspirational, who also happen to be women. I want to thank you, Maureen. Thank you for me on this. I'm certainly going to be listening and learning from you as well. And I want to thank the other leaders in our organization, the other women leaders in our organization, who are just fantastic, pivotal point and I know we talk about pivot, but this is a pivotal foundation of our business and our success. And then last, I want to leave you with, let's not forget the men. Some of us, we get it. Some of us, we still don't get it. Let's pull them closer and let's make them part of the change for complete equality and for complete parity. I know we always make it about women. I mean, look at the video that Maureen just showed you. I didn't know about it. It says violence and abuse against women. Maybe it shouldn't have been like that. Maybe it should have been stop men from committing violence. And so let's put the emphasis on women. The problem's not the women, the problem's the men. And so we'll continue to deal with that. About men dealing with men, is you helping us deal with the men that can't transform from that perspective. But other than that, I want to thank you for the few words that I've said. Maureen, thank you for putting me on the spot. God bless you all. And I'll be listening and learning along the way today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Greg, for those very powerful words. And, you know, I've always maintained, if you uplift a woman, you uplift a community. And just apologies to those of you. Apparently I had a little bit of a feed problem. I hope that is now resolved. No matter how much you check this out in the tech trial beforehand, the dry run, we always seem to still run into technological problems. So to our audience, please remember to post your comments on social media using the hashtag #WomenInConversation. So anything that strikes you, any really interesting statements, things that really resonate, just pop it onto social media with that hashtag #WomenInConversation. We're going to be taking questions, so please post those in the chat box so that we can answer them at the end of the panel. And you do need to post a question in order to put yourself in line to win a Old Mutual Hamper, or a copy of Nicolette's book, What's Your Move? So let's now move on to our discussion, and a warm welcome to all our panelists. I think I did a great introduction for all of you. So we've got Nicolette, we've got Portia, we've got Riapele, we've got Gugu, who are going to continue their life lessons with us. But Nicolette, I mentioned your book, so I'm going to start with you. Your book was motivated by your personal journey with money. And I mean, I always think we learn so much more from other people's experiences because it's more relatable. Maybe you can share with us some of the key money lessons that you've learned from your journey.
Good morning to everybody. Sorry, obviously there's going to be those technical things that kind of get to you, right? So thank you so much for having me today, and good morning to everybody. So when I wrote Your Move, I think one of the biggest things that probably had happened in my life, I had just realized that there's so much that we need to understand about money that a lot of us didn't understand. But also, I think I had gone for many years not necessarily being aware of the fact the conversation was a taboo conversation in most households. And I think back in 2017, it was the first time in my life that I actually became aware that, oh my goodness, there is this one thing that is so heavily integrated into our life, and that's really making decisions that a lot of us don't have a conversation about. I always use the example to say the moment you wake up, sometimes it's not even the moment you wake up, the bed you're waking up from, the roof you're waking up from, or under the roof that you're waking up from, the neighborhood that you're waking up from is a direct consequence of sometimes your financial decision making, right? So you are consistently making these financial decisions. And one day you wake up and you realize, oh my goodness, I've been making these decisions really from a very uninformed place. And it does not matter how educated you are, it does not matter what background you really come from. At the end of the day, a lot of us are not born bad at money. We simply have some level of a skill that is missing that unfortunately is not necessarily taught at an early age. And ultimately, money management is a crucial life skill. I always say no amount of money will ever compensate for the lack of financial management or money management. So when I wrote the book, I think that really is the one thing that I wanted to be a key theme across the book, is to get people to understand that you're not born bad at money. There is no genetic something that is put together in you that makes you bad at money. Yes, you may respond to several behavioral biases in a specific manner, and that could be attached to your gender, it could be attached to your race. However, all of us are born with the ability to learn money management, and I think that's really the consistent theme that goes throughout the book. And that's been the biggest money lesson that I have learned, is that if I give myself enough chance and I have a willingness to learn, there's so much more that I can do in terms of how my financial decisions.
You know, Nicolette, that's such an interesting comment, because I also was just thinking, people always think it's people with more money who need to know how to manage their money, or, that. But I look at it and I see that, generally speaking, the more money you earn, the more trouble you get yourself into if you don't have those financial skills. So it's really not about whether you have money or not. It's about how learning those skills. I think it's such a key point. Portia, I want to ask you a question. Okay, I mean, you're an experienced businesswoman, and you've no doubt had your share of challenges in your life. What would you tell your younger self, given the knowledge and experience you have today?
Thank you so much, Maya. So I'd like to start off by saying welcome to all the viewers and my fellow panelists. And Maureen, thank you so much for that introduction and the work that McDonald's is doing in the space for women. Greg, I am a woman in McDonald's, and I'm at the forefront of the great leadership that you're doing in support of the empowering and the liberation of women in the economic space. So thank you for being great CEO of Women Championship. So Maya, to your question, I would tell a younger Portia to pursue a healthy relationship with money. And because I know that a younger would ask, what do you mean by a healthy relationship? So I would elaborate and say, in your bolder and bigger financial ambitions and goals, make sure that you include a vision that has an impact on people. So it cannot be all about having a big fat bank balance. It has to have something that has an impact on something that is bigger than you. So if you ask your vision or your objective to say, why am I going into business for this? It cannot be, I'm just going in it for Portia. It's got to be for something bigger than you. And if you ask that question and it doesn't get you to that point, I would advise you to just stop until you get to that reason that is bigger than you. So the second thing I would advise a younger Portia is to have a relationship with money that is not high maintenance. So, like sometimes you've got friends that are high maintenance, and, when they're in high moods, you've got to run with them, and when they're in the low mood, you've got to also be depressed and be stressed. So I would advise a younger Portia to have a relationship with money, understanding that there will be times when there's abundance of it, and there will be times when there is a limitation of it. And learn to manage both situations with gratitude, and learn to manage both situations with lessons to learn in those times. And lastly, I would actually advise a younger Portia to have fun with money, and enjoy the journey, and be adventurous with it. And don't be reckless, but don't be guilty when you actually need to enjoy the proceeds and the effort of the work that you have had to put to gain that money. And knowing a younger Portia, then I think she'll still roll her eyes and say, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, that's my.
Portia, I love that little bit of honesty at the end, and I think that is the biggest challenge. We all, we all go back. Like, if I could go back, I would have done this, this, and this differently. But the reality is, we probably wouldn't, because that's what we were at that age, and we had different feelings and emotions about stuff. So I think it's probably true. We probably all need that little conscience on our shoulder from a much younger age. But Gugu, listening to Nicolette and Portia, as a financial planner, you've advised many women on their finances. Do their sort of comments resonate with you? And what challenges do you think women in particular face when it comes to managing their money?
Thank you so much, Maya. I would absolutely agree with Nicolette and with Portia regarding everything that they've experienced in their younger selves, in their youth, when it comes to money. Our business deals a lot with money management, particularly for women, and this is common across the board for all women. We all have similar issues when it comes to the management of the money, of our money, or the lack thereof. And I'd say the biggest culprit in women struggling with managing their personal finances is ultimately due to a lack of knowledge. Globally, financial literacy rates are at a low. I think the last time I checked, it's sitting at just above 30% of adults globally are said to be financially literate. And that means you're able to make sound decisions when it comes to issues around debt, investing, saving, and the like. And most people have no idea. And the lack of financial knowledge actually affects more women than it does men. And that ultimately has a number of implications. And one of the biggest issues, one of the biggest implications that it has on women in particular is a lack of confidence. We then tend to struggle. Women in particular tend to be very hard on ourselves when it comes to our lack of knowledge in terms of personal finances. And then it results in a lot of inertia. So we stop, engaging in matters of personal finance. We tend not to want to invest because we don't know much about investments. And that can lead to a number of financial distresses. A lot of people are abusing substances. A lot of people are not sleeping. A lot of people are in financial ruin simply because they have no grapple on finance, on issues around personal finance. So I'd say, on the whole, the biggest issue, the biggest culprit that affects women and their money is actually a lack of knowledge. So yes, I completely agree with what the two ladies said earlier.
And I think what's so important with this is actually men are not better at managing money than women. They just have more confidence about it. And in fact, sometimes that confidence is the problem, because confidence without knowledge can also be a dangerous thing. But we always see, I see it over and over again, when women take control of the household finances, generally, they plan better, they ask the right questions, they think about the future. And I always remember Gugu listening to a financial planner saying, she said, when a man walks into her practice, he says, what are the best returns I can get? A woman walks in and says, how do I secure my children's future? So it's a completely different discussion, I think, that women bring. And that is why it's actually so important that women can are educated around money so that they can, plan for the future. That's so important for them. And just to the audience, to please remember to use that hashtag Women in Conversation. And I see some of your questions already coming through, so keep them coming. Now, Relapile, I want to ask you this question as the representative from Old Mutual. People are facing financial challenges at the best of times. The last 5 years in South Africa have not been easy, just generally for everyone. Yet now we were loaded as well with the COVID fallout. So what advice is Old Mutual giving to their clients at a time like this?
Hi, Maya, and hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes. Loud and clear.
Yes. All right. I was saying there's no better time to know better so that you can do better than now. It is important that one needs to start understanding and becoming a boss of your money, so that you can also do better with your money. And one important thing that I want to advise people on is speak to an accredited financial advisor in order for you to get the best advice that will be customized for you, And this is one thing that I would love to impart to say, please, when you go through financial stress or you don't know what to do, you need to seek help. You talk to a financial advisor. And we know that the COVID-19 has certainly shifted our views about money. And we've seen that in our latest Old Mutual Saving and Investment Monitor research. The results show that COVID made us, make people to be 87% that are working metropolitans household. They have changed the way they manage and use their money. And that's not surprising because currently 38% are still not earning the income that they used to earn before COVID. So definitely, we are facing tough times, So we are seeing some great positive steps, though, that people are taking to budget better and to reduce their expenses. Also from the research, we've seen that 69% use loyalty points or rewards, and 39% switch to cheaper supermarkets or other brands, so that they can be able to afford other things. And you'll be surprised that most of people are working from home. They no longer travel. But when you check and they check their finances, they've seen that they still spend more on groceries. So they have to make also to reduce or change their lifestyle. Also, 1 in 3 have combined homes. People have to move in with family members. And we've seen that 16% of those people have to move in with their families because things are tough now. But what is concerning is that people are feeling that they don't have a choice but to cancel insurance and precautionary cover. This is worrying because short-term insurance, medical aid, and life insurance and the savings are not and should not be seen as luxuries. They provide essential protection, particularly during this time where things are tough. And we need to make sure that we find a way to continuously look into how we can save as much as we are still protected. So these kind of expenses, many think that they are like grudges expenses. They are not. And we have also seen in our research that during times like this, That's when people go and make sure that they go and check their savings. They live out of those savings. They can pay debts, and they can also assist with in paying their expenses. So we have seen also currently 1 in 3 households have other avenues to generate extra income, and these women are good at this. They always look for a way of generating extra income by, in our research, we call them the polyjobbers, which is we refer to people who are making ends meet by creating multiple income streams. And they also maybe side hustles, a second job, or extra freelancing and or contract work. About 44% of the women who were surveyed in the OMSEN are polyjobbers. Women are also diversifying their expenses to get better returns. And we hear that more than 60% of women who were surveyed belong to stokvels, and 53% of them, they belong to multiple stokvels associations. So, and they also use women, they also use their rewards program actively in order to acquire groceries or other consumer item to supplement their income. So there are always ways to make good financial management a daily habit, Maya.
Absolutely. And I love the Old Mutual Savings Investment Monitor. I take that research, it's so in depth if people get an opportunity to look at it. But what really did strike me in this year's one was the number of people with an additional income. I think 47% of people said they either had additional income from another formal job, so working 2 jobs, or a side hustle. And that is a trend I think we're seeing just increasing and increasing. And that is one of the ways to make ends meet. If your salary is not keeping up with inflation, that's how we do it. But I must say, I am very concerned about the debt levels that we're seeing coming through as well. And I think, people can use those side hustles to pay down some of that debt. That would be really, really a smart move. But now, Portia, I want to ask you, I think you're a business owner, right? And business owners have faced a really, really challenging time. Added to COVID restrictions, we had the recent riots. How have you planned for the unexpected, both in your own personal finance, but also for the businesses that you run?
Yeah. Thanks, Maya. So one of the things I've realized as a business owner for the past almost 15 years is the fact that a downturn and an upturn in business is an inevitable process. And I've been through about 3 of those in the 15 years of being in business. And the first downturn that I had was so deep and so cutting. I learned so much in terms of putting into reality what I thought I knew and I didn't know. And that big lesson was planning. I had absolutely no plan for a downturn in the business. And I thought I was, because I thought I was saving. I thought I was doing the right thing. But when I was in that downturn cycle, in the valley of it, I realized I actually didn't do it right. A lot of us hear of the story of you've got to save for a rainy day, and we probably do, but we save here and there, but it's not a consistent and disciplined and professional way of doing it and understanding, what do I need to save? How do I need to save? And how much do I need to save? So for me, that was the biggest lesson that I got from my first downturn. So I went to a financial advisor actually and got to understand the detail of it. it actually means that you have to understand the different levels, or whether it's a short-term saving, medium term, or long term, and also how much of it does it need to be in liquidity, so that you can actually withdraw it within 24 hours, or how much of it is hedged against foreign currency, and all sorts of financial instruments. So one needs a professional to get that advice. But if you do it by yourself, like I did, just saying I'm saving so much every month, it's actually uninformed, and it may not be able to cover you during a downturn. So that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned, at not to believe your own truth. Go to a financial specialist, get the understanding, because then you can share the context of your business or your personal circumstances and draft your path in a way that you will be covered in such a situation. So I spoke about the first downturn that I had. After that, I learned so well. I was an A grade student, such that when we got the COVID crisis and subsequently the looting, I actually slept well. Not that it didn't affect me; it did affect me. However, I was much better prepared from a financial perspective, and it's because of the actions that I took from the first experience that I had. So I would advise any business person, or even at a personal level, because I extended that to a personal level, to say, what are my goals? What do I want to achieve? And then work backwards from that, and work professionally with an expert, and just don't put in your own plans that you believe are right. So that is the biggest lesson that I have learned, and I would share with the audience out there.
Yeah, that's such a key point. And I have a financial planner. People say, "Wow, you know so much," but for me, it's about a sounding board. It's somebody to double check, to remind me, to keep me on track, to remind me what my goals actually are. Because sometimes you kind of see something else and you want to do something different. They say, "Remember, go back." But Portia, wanted to make a comment about the fact that you got into when COVID hit, you were better prepared. And whenever I speak to the banks or anybody, they say that businesses that went through 2007, 2008, remember the credit crisis, was probably your first knock, they have survived better in COVID because they've experienced that knock. And I think, sadly enough, we usually have to go through an experience before we learn from it. So it is interesting to see that your bad experiences are actually the things that set you up for success. And I think that's something we need to remember when we're in the deep, dark hole of of a tough time. Nicolette, coming to you now. In your journey, both on the personal financial side, but also you have a business, have you always had a plan, or do you just take opportunities when you see them?
Sure. Look, I think I'm a firm believer, Maya, in really crafting solutions for whatever problems that I seem to experience in my own life, right? So if I'm confronted with a specific problem, I'd like to believe that there is a market out there that kind of mirrors who I am. So I think it's always been having a plan and understanding what it is that I want to put out into the market, especially from a business perspective, and being able to create solutions that I would be comfortable and happy with. So I would say definitely there's always been a plan. However, sometimes you are your decisions become you almost what's the word that I'm looking for? There's an English word that I'm looking for, but ultimately what I'm trying to say is sometimes you often find yourself in situations that are led, or you are led to, because of the decisions that you have made. So for instance, before I actually moved into the space of doing financial education, I was actually in the space of media buying and brand activations. So that's really what I used to do. And I guess, as you rightfully say, the more money that you start making, the more you start realizing the little loopholes that you've got in your own personal life. And I remember, I did extremely well within the media and brand activation space. And I remember in 2016 walking into this property viewing, and I was ready to buy this property. I was blown away away by this property. And I think one of the biggest things that really stood out for me in that property is that it had a walk-in fridge. And you must understand, now I'm from Bushbuckridge, okay? We don't have walk-in fridges in Bushbuckridge. So when you walk into a house that has a full-on walk-in fridge, you just like, this reminds me of a Tops, because that's where I've seen a walk-in fridge. But this can essentially be my life. And you know, wealthy people have some weird things that they do. They in that house. That was the first time I was also confronted with a thing called a pajama lounge. Coming from the village, we don't have homes with pajama lounges. So signing that OTP and signing the offer to purchase was really for me an emotional decision, a decision that had no financial backing to it, no financial decision making, no financial information to it. Signed the offer to purchase, only to find out a couple of days later that I actually cannot afford this house at all, in as much as I probably have a deposit to be able to put down. And going through the process of, you know, what it means when you are buying a property and finding out all the legal obligations that you now have placed on yourself, you start to panic because you're like, I am actually a very well-educated person. I somehow am in a space in my life where I've got a lot of money, but there are certain things about finance that I actually don't know and I actually do not understand. And it was the first time that I had to say to myself and have the conversation with myself and say, you need to go back to the drawing board. You need to go back and have an understanding of financial education, what financial decisions, what type of implication they may have on the trajectory of my financial future. And that was the point where it kind of dropped. And I was like, hey, man, I actually need financial education. And if I need financial education, there's probably a whole group and cohort of other people could really find value in financial education. And that's simply really how I ended up in the financial education space. So as I was explaining, for me, there is a planning that goes into what type of life I want to do, what type of a business person I want to be, what type of solutions I want to bring to the market. But often you may find that you get led into specific spaces and kind of figuring out, you know, how to craft a business around specific things because they speak to you as a consumer. So you are on the other side and you are the consumer. And I think financial education kind of was one of those that happened to me.
Mm. You know, well, I mean, I think you and I were chatting the other day and I sort of said to you, I've never had a 5-year plan. And I know one should, but one has an idea of where it wants to go, but there are opportunities come along and you think, okay, as long as it aligns with the direction I want to go in, you know, you don't want to be rigid about things. So I think there is that flexibility that one needs within one's planning as well. But I want to also comment, Nicolette, I'm sure you get a lot of these questions. I get these sort of things on social media, talking about planning, right? This is not uncommon. I get things like, I have a 50,000 Rand to invest, where should I put it? And I'm eternally, one day I'm going to just put here are my bank account details, you know? But Gugu, you must also get these type of questions from clients. How do you respond?
We get them all the time, and oftentimes I have to clutch my pearls and gasp because it really is scary. People indiscriminately ask these questions, not just of financial experts, but of random people on social media, which is a very dangerous thing to do. I equate that kind of behavior to, you know, randomly asking people about, you know, if you have a rash or a lesion on your skin. And you ask your gardener or you ask a friend about what that lesion is, and you actually take that information that they give you and you implement it. They have no idea what you are struggling with. They have no idea what that lesion is. There's no experience in terms of how you got to that physical ailment, and your finances are no different. It's a massive risk that you take by asking random individuals who know absolutely very little to nothing about you regarding something that's so deeply personal and so important to you, such as money. So it's something that I discourage people from doing. Very, very, I see it. I try to talk people out of that behavior because, as I said, it has the potential to have some really catastrophic effects on your finances. before you can advise somebody about what to do with their money, you need to get a proper understanding of everything about this person. So you need to understand what their background is. You need to understand how they arrived at this money that they've got. You need to understand where they're trying to get to with this money. You need to understand if they've got additional funds over and above what they're trying to seek advice from or about. And there's so much that I think that are important that you need to get an understanding of long before you can advise somebody about their money, which is why the practice of randomly asking for financial advice from random people on social media and elsewhere is something that should be discouraged, because we do see a lot of harm being created as a result of that.
And I think also it comes back to this idea of plan. Rather than just having a string of investments, what are those things there for? So, I mean, 50,000 Rand, do you have an emergency fund? Do you have debt? Do you have a retirement fund? Do you have children to educate? Like, what is this 50,000 Rand? How is it best going to serve you? And I think that's also it. People don't often realize that there's a plan. I'm going to see Nicola nodding her head. You need to be building over time, a plan about how your money is going to serve you and meet your goals and your needs. And I think that is also part of that kind of disconnect. And I think we see this quite a lot, especially with things like cryptocurrencies and all of that, where people kind of they want to make money, but they don't really know why or how it all fits in. And I mean, talking of social media, what is this? Okay, guys, what is it? All right. People don't trust financial institutions. For some reason, they would rather give their money to someone on Facebook promising to double their money in a crypto scam than they will to like a qualified financial planner. I don't understand that. So, Rita Pile, how does an institution develop trust? I mean, how does Old Mutual make sure that clients have a positive outcome and that they don't go to the Facebook dude?
Hi, Maya. People are desperate these days. People want to make quick money. And in today's market, company must find a new way, to connect with their customers and meet their diverse range of financial needs. That means understanding the needs and creating a proposition that will talk to them, that will meet those needs and consistently remain relevant. There's never been a more important time like now, as people navigate through the economic challenges and the pandemic and uncertainty, uncertainty for financial institution is to foster strong, trustworthy relationship and enhance trust, in your customers. So it is critical, the role of building trust by, enhancing and creating customized, human-centric experiences, personal experiences that will ultimately enhance trust and consumer confidence at the same time. Having some values and ethics also will help companies, and also delivering on promises with competence and professionalism. The customers must always come first. It's key for financial institutions to be genuinely customer-centric. Trust is, a predicate on customers. They expect companies to, to deliver on their promise. Remember, most companies, especially like us or Mutual, we sell a promise. And customers, when they reach out to say, now situation, how are you going to assist me? Because you promise, we sell a promise to them, so we must make sure that we deliver. So it is very critical for financial organizations to empower and inform their customers with knowledge and tools, needs in order for customers to make informed decisions. Hence, I would stress to say, talk to an accredited financial advisor, consult. Don't just go and talk to anyone. Look for accredited financial advisors in order for you to be helped, and they will customize a needs and affordability plan for you. So always make sure that they also companies must make sure that there's transparency. Transparency is essential. Clear focus on a plan that's simple in the client's or customer's language to empower and also to enable the greater sense of understanding and empowerment. And also, financial education is also key. Financial education is key. People need to understand their finances. And we offer financial education also at Old Mutual so that people must know and learn and know what opportunities, what rights are there out there for them. So it is critical. And I will emphasize again, seek financial advice.
Great. We're going to be moving to audience questions now. So we want to get a few questions in quickly. But Gugu, before we go, I thought I'm just going to ask you this quick question, just to pick up on what Peter was saying, which is, if a client is meeting with a financial planner for the first time, what questions should they be asking to vet the planner? How do you know you're working with someone you can trust?
Yeah, that really is an important question. I think the first and probably one of the most crucial ones is qualifications and experience. The person that you are dealing with needs to be suitably qualified and suitably experienced. As we know, there are a lot of fly-by-nights, there are a lot of crooks out there actually swindling people and taking people for a ride. So although it doesn't completely take away the potential risk of dealing with any individual, but I think it does give a sense of comfort that the person that you're dealing with actually knows what they're talking about. The second and important aspect of vetting your advisor is understanding what level of licensing that they've got. People may, I find that a lot of consumers don't know this, but before you can give financial advice, you need some sort of authorization or license or permission to be able to give financial advice. So I can't wake up one day today and decide that I'm going to start dishing out financial advice. I need to be authorized by the Financial Services Conduct Authority in one way or another to be able to give. That's quite easy to check. You just ask for their license number and you look it up on the FSCA website. They'll tell you exactly who this person is and what they're licensed to give. The third, and I think also equally important aspect of vetting of financial advisors, understanding how they get remunerated. Fees are an important aspect of what we do. And ideally, you want to be dealing with somebody who is not incentivized to sell certain products and services, because that means that they may not necessarily be dishing out financial advice or giving or recommending financial products that may be in your best interest. So it's important for you to understand how they get remunerated, where their fees come from, and how they earn their living. There are a few other things. I think a very important aspect of vetting your financial advisor is actually having a conversation. You need to sit down with the person, and you need to actually, because it's a long-term relationship that you're going to be engaging in with your financial advisor. You're not just buying a product, and it's not just a snapshot in time where you're going to be engaging this particular individual. Ideally, they're going to be in your life for a very long time. So it's important for the two of you to build a rapport, to be comfortable with how they manage their business, and for you to buy into that process. Because as I said, it's a long-term investment that you're both making into.
Very key point is that first conversation. And I know many financial planners don't charge you this conversation. That is let's see if this is a relationship we want to have that's going to work for both of us. I think a very, very key point. We've got quite a lot of questions that have come through. So I'm going to quickly kick off with those. And what I found very interesting is many of them relate to saving for your children's education. And it was just interesting, just as a note, we saw Time Bank actually came a survey that found the biggest priority for people's savings is and suddenly I see most of the questions coming through relate to children's education. And it's, Doreen saying she's got a goal to save 10,000 Rand a year for her son. How can I improve these savings, and how do I put money away for his future, but also for his school fees? I've got another one, a mother of 4 children. How can she save for their education? So just maybe Gugu, that's a question I'll put to you first. And yeah, what do you, how do you plan for your children's education in when times are tough, I suppose?
Yeah, yeah. I think that question differs from individual to individual because it depends on your starting point. For starters, it's crucial that you plan for your children's education, ideally long before they arrive, because that means you've got time. Your money has time to actually work in your favor in the long term. But once your children are here, it does become a little bit difficult. So you then have a choice between investment-based products, things like your tax-free savings account or unit trust accounts, as well as insurance-based products. So, and there you would have to do your homework because those generally or typically pay in the event that something happens to you, the guardian or the parent of the children. But I think a combination of the two would be a very great idea. So I think, but I think also most importantly, it's important for that money to start working for you. So in other words, you need to commit that money to an investment product where it can actually grow exponentially over time and eventually grow to the level that you need it to be for your children. But it's a tough one because your starting point is actually what makes the difference.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the earlier you start, the better. And I think also it's about lifestyle choices as you go along. What are my priorities? And there may be some sacrifices as parents we have to make because we want to educate our children. And sometimes you've got to sit down and say, what are the sacrifices that I'm going to make? But Nicolette, I've got a question here, and I get this question quite often, so I know you're going to be comfortable to answer this. It's around credit and credit records. So Daisy's saying, I've stayed away from credit my whole life because I know it's bad. But now I actually want to buy a home. And how do I build up my credit record without getting myself into trouble? Do I go and open a store account? Do I open up a credit card? Yeah. How should somebody manage their credit if they're trying to get a credit score?
Thank you, Maya. Look, I think it's really important, Daisy, to understand one thing, and of course, this not being any financial advice, right? We're going to take it from the approach of education. I think one thing is really important is for us to vilify credit, because credit on its own is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Access to good credit, in fact, is the best thing. It's a privilege in this country where not many people have that type of access, right? We also have to understand that many South Africans probably cannot make big ticket item purchase like cars and homes cash, which means that credit education is really where we need to start and get our fellow South Africans to understand how credit facilities work. But aside from that, which is a conversation that I think still needs a lot of exploring in a country like South Africa, I think building your credit score really comes down to understanding what actually makes up your credit score. And one of the biggest things, and I always use the example of you being in, I think it's grade 9 now. Was it even grades when I was in high school? In grade 9, you kind of get to pick the subjects that you want, which ultimately are going to take you into the type of career path you're going to follow. Now, one of the things you're not necessarily going to do is to pick math higher grade when you're going to grade 10 if you've never really done math at that level or really performed really well in math. So similar to what happens when they look at your credit to give you a credit score, they look at what type of first and foremost exposure you've had to credit, but also most importantly, how you have behaved when you did have those agreements. Did you pay the minimum monthly payment? Did you make it on time? And did you honor your credit agreements as per the credit T's and C's, right? So that's essentially really the biggest thing that builds your credit. Also, being able to be in a position where you are not credit dependent is a great place for you to be, where credit lenders or credit providers will see you as somebody worthy. And I always also want to spin this conversation around and say it's important that when we're talking credit, we understand that the credit provider essentially sees the consumer as an investment vehicle, because essentially the interest rate that you're going to be charged is actually a return to the credit provider. So what you ultimately want to get is to make yourself credit worthy so that you actually become a great investment for the credit provider. That may sound a little bit, it may sound like you are actually doing yourself a disservice. But what that also does for you is put you in a position where you can negotiate for better terms and conditions when it comes to your credit agreement. So how do you go about building that credit, a good credit score? Again, it's about making sure that you do get a credit line, but that credit line that you are getting, understand how it works. So often we hear people say, get a store card, because a store card is easier to maintain. You know, you pay off the minimum, and so you can buy socks and maybe underwear with that credit, with that store card, and you'll start to gradually build your credit. One other way to do it, which many people also may be a bit wary of, is using something like a credit card. And I always say with a credit card, what's beautiful about it is that you can actually put advanced money on a credit card. So you will still have an open credit line. So when the credit provider looks at your credit profile, they will be able to see a credit line. But that means that you don't necessarily have to use the credit facility that you have been advanced, which is now the limit on your credit card. So essentially what I used to do is I would have a credit limit, maybe I think let's say you've got a credit limit of 8,000 Rand. But because I have done my budget, and I think Maya, you and I have spoken quite a lot every time we have a conversation about the importance of budgeting, right? Once you have budgeted and you know exactly what your day-to-day living expenses are, take that amount of money and put it on your credit card. And then you use your credit card with your own money, not the actual financial institution's money. So essentially, when they look at your profile, you do have a credit line, but you are not necessarily using it. So what are you not doing? You're not taking that credit line and converting it into debt, but the credit line does exist. So that's another way in which you can actually build your credit. But I think also really, really important is understanding when you do build a credit line, it is a responsibility that you are taking yourself to stick to the T's and C's that you have agreed to when you signed that credit agreement.
Such an important point there, Nicolette. I think a lot of people forget that they have to repay the debt. That's because it's actually money borrowed from other people. Portia, we're running out of time, but I actually had a really great question through for you that I want to quickly ask you. What's your advice to someone who wants to be an owner-operator? So obviously there's somebody out there who's planning on buying a franchise.
I can see there's a hand up there in one of the panelists. I would say that the first thing is talk to McDonald's. And then you have to think about, since we're talking about finances, you have to think about the potential financial implications. So, for example, my journey of getting with McDonald's from a financial perspective started like 3-4 years ago in terms of planning for what I would need potentially to invest in a business. So you have to start now to put something aside, to invest something or save something in the event that you do get to McDonald's. But if you want to come to McDonald's, by all means, knock on the door, have a conversation, understand what it would take from a finance perspective, from your time perspective, from experience perspective, and go through a process of aligning your goals and your needs with what the brand and the system obviously looks for. But it's a thoroughly enjoyable process, very demanding, very enjoyable. So much of value, not just to yourself, but to a broader community, and very stimulating from a business perspective as well. But obviously it's got its own ups and downs. I spoke about the peaks and the valleys, but with all those, I would do nothing but still stay with McDonald's. So yes, we're looking for more women to come.
And I think, any franchise that you join, you've got to look at and ask the operators in there if they're happy. I think that's probably a good starting point. To be interested in any franchise is to go and speak to the franchisees and just get a sense of whether or not they're happy, and then you're going to treat you well or not. I have to tell you, I'm not going to mention names. I did buy a franchise many years ago, and let me tell you, I wouldn't have recommended that company to anyone. It was not McDonald's, don't worry. But I just want to fit in. We are running out of time, but I did have one question that I thought was just, it's another question that we get quite frequently, and I thought, sorry, Gugu, I'm going to throw this one to you because of your books that you wrote. What is the right age to introduce financial planning to children?
As soon as they can see you, as soon as they can interact with you, so even before they can speak, because your financial habits are formed by the time you're 7. So it means they're observing, they're hearing, they're watching, all of those things long before the age of 7. So you need to engage your children when it comes to matters of personal finance long before they turn 7.
So I must just tell you, my son was 6 when he asked me what would happen if I died. 6. And like, you try and avoid that conversation, but they're asking and you need to have an answer. And fortunately, I did have an answer, which was I had a will, we had a guardian set up, we had life cover. And then he even said, but mommy, what happens to Oma, it's our granny, when she can't work anymore? And we got into a retirement discussion. He was 6. Don't think kids don't understand this stuff. If they're ready to ask the question, be ready for the conversation. But I want to say thank you to all our panelists. I'll be perfectly honest, we could have carried on. We had so many more questions, and I'm sorry we couldn't get through all of them, but time is always limited in this world. So thank you, all of you, for your interesting insights, and to Old Mutual for making this event possible. And of course, I want to thank our audience for their great participation and all those questions that came flowing in. So I've got a lot of winners to announce. The winners of the Old Mutual Hamper winners, and apparently you're going to get this, they will be in touch with you after the webinar. And just excuse my, if I pronounce your name incorrectly, I've got a whole lot of names to get through here. So well done to Miranda, Natasha, Tibogo, Kineliwe, Mbali, Tuli, Jennifer, Magliso, Daisy, Zandile, Gosimang, Motso, Tasneem, Sandi Sizwe, and Cleo Lushaba, Lushab. And to all of you, you are all going to be winners for participating and being some of our fantastic audience. So thank you to everybody. And again, thank you to Old Mutual. And I hope you have a splendid week going forward.